Hello, the case I'm about to tell you about today happened in the year 2000. It is the most famous unsolved case in modern Japan and also the one with the highest reward ever offered in Japanese history, the Setagaya family massacre in Tokyo. There is an administrative ward in Tokyo, Japan called Setagaya. This area is located in the southwestern part of Tokyo and is the most populous among the city's 23 wards. In the year 2000, in a two-story house in Setagaya, lived Mikio Miyazawa, a 44-year-old man who worked as a designer for a company. His wife, Yasuko, 41, ran a cram school for children from their home. They had an 8-year-old daughter named Nina and a 6-year-old son named Ray. Originally, the house next door was home to Yasuko's mother and older sister. After her sister got married and moved out, only her mother remained living there alone. Later on, Yasuko converted the first floor of her mother's house into a classroom for teaching, while the first floor of her own house was turned into a studio for her husband. Mikio, from the outside, the two houses appeared to be connected, but in reality, they were not. Mikio and his wife had been living there since June 1990, which means they had been in that home for over 10 years. During that time, they had a son and a daughter. It was a happy family. So what exactly happened that day? Did the killer deliberately and brutally murder all 4 of them, including the 2 children? Now, let's turn back time and revisit the final day of the year 2000. It was a Sunday, a little after 10 a.m. Yasuko's mother, who was living alone, started to feel that something was off. Normally, around that time, her daughter would bring the 2 children over for her to watch, but that morning, there was no sign of them. About half an hour later, she called her daughter's house twice, yet no one answered. That made her feel very uneasy, so she decided to go over to her daughter's house to check. Around 10:50 a.m., she rang the doorbell, but no one came to answer. She pressed her ear against the door, trying to hear any sounds inside, but everything was completely silent. When she glanced over at the garage, she could still see her daughter's family car parked there. Finding it strange, she used the spare key to unlock the door herself. She stepped into the dark house, immediately noticing the strange smell in the air. When she turned on the lights, she saw someone lying on the floor near the staircase on the first floor. As she approached, she realized it was her son-in-law, Mikio. His clothes were stained with blood, and in horror, she stepped over her son-in-law and ran upstairs, crying as she went. Her voice trembled as she called out her daughter's name. The smell of blood in the air seemed to grow even stronger. When she reached the second floor, she found her daughter lying in a pool of blood, her face slashed with a sharp object. Her granddaughter Nina was beneath her, also covered in blood with multiple wounds on her face. Overwhelmed with fear and shock, she rushed back downstairs and with a trembling voice, called the police. After receiving the report, the police quickly dispatched a large team to the scene. They immediately cordoned off the area, launched an investigation, and began collecting evidence. Inside the house, they discovered the bodies of a family of 4. The body of the homeowner, Mikio Miyazawa, was found on the staircase leading from the first floor to the second. A knife blade, approximately 3 centimeters long, was lodged in the left side of his head. His right ring finger was missing, and his body was covered in stab wounds across nearly every part. The bodies of the wife, Yasuko, and their 8-year-old daughter, Nina, were found on the staircase on the second floor. Yasuko was lying on top of her daughter, as if she had been trying to protect her in her final moments. Her face and neck were severely mutilated. Nina, just 8 years old, was in a similar state, with visible injuries consistent with blunt force trauma. The 6-year-old son, Ray, was found on the bunk bed in the upstairs bedroom. There were deep strangulation marks on the boy's neck, indicating that the killer had used excessive force. There were no signs of struggle, suggesting that the boy died in his sleep. Based on the contents found in the victims' stomachs, the forensic pathologist concluded that the time of death was the night before around 11:30 p.m. on December 30th. Crime process: the police found a shoe print just below the bathroom window on the outside of the house, and several branches around. The fence had been trampled, suggesting the killer had climbed up and entered through the window. Inside the house, the first aid kit had been opened. A used bandage bearing the killer's fingerprint, along with a blood-stained hand towel, was found in the kitchen. The killer even attempted to stop the bleeding using a feminine sanitary pad, and left a large number of shoe prints throughout the house. Based on the evidence, police concluded that on the night of December 30th, the murderer climbed up from the outside and entered the house through the bathroom window on the second floor. First, he went to the children's bedroom and strangled the sleeping son to death. Hearing unusual noises from upstairs, the father, Mikio, who was on the first floor, rushed up only to come face to face with the killer coming down. A violent struggle broke out between the two. During the fight, the killer was also injured. After killing Mikio, the murderer continued upstairs to the attic bedroom, which was the master bedroom of the couple. Normally, their daughter Nina would sleep with her younger brother on the bunk bed on the second floor. But that night, she had caught a cold, so she was sleeping with her mother in the attic bedroom. The killer attacked the mother and daughter while they were asleep, using a knife, however. After the earlier struggle with the father on the first floor, the blade had become too dull, so the killer went downstairs and found another kitchen knife to continue the attack. At that point, the mother was still alive. She tried to carry her daughter from the attic down the stairs in an attempt to escape, but the killer caught them almost immediately and used the kitchen knife to continue the brutal attack. Evidence found at the crime scene. In this case, the killer left behind an unusual amount of evidence at the scene. 2 knives were used in the attack, and both were recovered. One of them was a Yanajiba knife, also known as a sashimi knife, which the killer had brought with him. This type of knife is long and narrow, traditionally used for slicing sashimi. With precision, the sashimi knife had the inscription Guansan Lu Jinsho written on it. The knife measured 34 centimeters in total length, with a 21 centimeters blade. It was manufactured at a factory in Fukui Prefecture, which had produced 1,500 of these knives in June 2000 and distributed them to 46 stores across the Kanto region. The second knife used in the crime was a kitchen knife that belonged to the Miyazawa family. Police were able to extract the killer's fingerprints from more than 10 different spots at the crime scene. Unfortunately, in Japan back in 2000, fingerprints were only collected from individuals with prior criminal records. Investigators ran the prints through the National Fingerprint Database, but found no matches. They later sent the fingerprints to Interpol, but again, no matches were found. Blood samples left at the crime scene by the killer revealed that his blood type was type A, and no traces of stimulants, cold medicine, or other drugs were found in his system. DNA analysis indicated that the killer's father was of East Asian descent, while his mother had Mediterranean or Southern European ancestry. Experts noted that this type of DNA is rare in Japan but not unheard of, so it couldn't completely rule out the possibility that the suspect was Japanese. Statistically, the DNA profile matched about 1 in 13 Japanese, 1 in 10 Chinese, and 1 in 5 Koreans, making it more common among individuals of Korean descent. From the numerous shoe prints found at the crime scene, investigators determined that the shoe size was 275 centimeters, which corresponds to a European size 45. The shoes were of the Schlesinger brand, a British company. Although Schlesinger shoes were available in Japan at the time, they did not carry sizes that large. The largest size sold in Japan was 26 centimeters. The 275 centimeters size was only manufactured in South Korea, with a total of 4,530 pairs produced, all officially distributed exclusively within South Korea. In addition to the shoes, the killer also left behind several pieces of clothing at the crime scene. A black Uniqlo jacket, size large, of which 82,000 units had been sold nationwide. Gray cap with a total of 3,465 units sold across the country. a blue striped scarf with no brand label, a MX holiday sweatshirt, a pair of Swatch gloves, and 2 plain black handkerchiefs. One of the black handkerchiefs had a 3 centimeters hole cut in the center. And there was also a waist pouch left behind. That particular pouch was part of a limited production run. Only 2,850 units were made. Traces of perfume from the French brand White Land were found on both the handkerchief and the waist pouch, suggesting the killer may have been wearing or using this scent at the time of the crime. When the killer fled the scene, he only took 200,000 yen in cash and left behind the victims' wallets and credit cards. Based on the investigation, Japanese police concluded that the suspect was a male, estimated to be between 15 and 35 years old, around 170 centimeters tall, and physically fit, capable of climbing up to a second-floor window. He demonstrated knowledge of how to use a woman's sanitary pad to stop bleeding, and left behind a large number of shoe prints with a distinctive gait pattern. Authorities speculated that the killer may have had military experience, given his physical abilities and methodical behavior. After murdering the entire Miyazawa family, the killer did not leave the scene right away. Instead, he calmly ate a melon that had been stored in the refrigerator, drank a large bottle of barley tea, and ate 4 ice cream bars. He then proceeded to open nearly every drawer and cabinet in the house, as if he were searching for something, or perhaps staging the scene to look like a robbery. The killer used the toilet in the house and even tore up some of Yasuko's textbooks, throwing the pages into the toilet bowl. He also turned on Mikio's computer and browsed the internet. According to digital forensics, the killer was using the computer between 10:20 p.m. and 10:50 p.m. on December 30th, the night of the murders. Later, at 1:18 a.m. and again at 10:05 a.m. on December 31st, the killer used the computer twice, each session lasting about 5 minutes. The killer only used the mouse and did not touch the keyboard. After committing the murders, the killer didn't flee the scene. Instead, he stayed at the Miyazawa home for over 10 hours. His second use of the computer was recorded at 10:05 a.m. on December 31st. At that very moment, Yasuko's mother was anxiously waiting next door, wondering why her daughter hadn't come by as usual. Had she decided to visit even a little earlier, she might have become another victim. However, regarding the second time the computer was used, the Japanese police released an updated investigation report in late 2014, suggesting that the recorded usage at 10:05 a.m. on December 31st might have been caused by a computer error. It's possible that the killer had already fled the scene early in the morning. Shortly after using the computer for the first time, the victim's mother reported that on December 25th, just a few days before the incident, there was a car parked in front of their house then. On the morning of December 27, 3 days before the murders, she noticed a suspicious man wandering near the house. On December 30th, the very day the family was killed, a witness claimed to have seen a strange man arguing with Mikio, the husband, around noon. Around 3 p.m. on December 30th, a housewife reported seeing a man dressed in a tracksuit and athletic pants at a subway station approximately 15 kilometers from the crime scene. He closely resembled the suspect described by the police. The housewife said she remembered the man clearly because it was December and the weather in Tokyo was very cold. While everyone else was wearing jackets, this man stood out because he wasn't wearing a coat at all. That detail left a strong impression on her. Between 11:35 p.m. and 11:40 p.m. on December 30th, a man estimated to be between 25 and 30 years old was seen walking toward the alley behind the victim's house. Near Mikio's house, there was a park called Setagaya Park, which was in the process of being cleared for expansion. A total of 30 houses in the area were slated for demolition, and the Miyazawa family's house was one of them. They had planned to move out in March 2001. By that time, almost all the neighbors had already relocated, leaving only 4 houses still occupied. As a result, there were very few people in the vicinity, making it even harder to find witnesses who could provide crucial leads. Mikio's son, Ray, suffered from a congenital speech disorder. The couple often participated in counseling and charity activities, and they were known to have connections with several religious groups. One theory suggests that the handkerchief with a hole cut in the center, which was found at the crime scene, might have been used by the killer as part of some kind of religious ritual. In 2002, a Japanese writer named Fumihito Hoshino documented in detail his in-depth investigation into South Korean religious organizations and individuals associated with the area around Mikio's home. However, in 2005, after cooperating with South Korean police, the Japanese authorities dismissed this theory during their investigation. Another theory suggests that the killer, after committing the murders, had no intention of continuing to live. Therefore, he made no effort to conceal the evidence at the crime scene and may have taken his own life somewhere else. There's also a theory that the perpetrator was extremely intelligent and that this was a high IQ crime meticulously planned and executed with great sophistication. He deliberately left behind a large amount of evidence at the scene. He had enough time to stage the crime scene in a way that would deliberately mislead the police, steering their investigation toward a direction he had pre-designed. Every clue found may have been intentionally planted by the killer himself. As time went by, even the Japanese police were left helpless, and the case became one of the most impactful unsolved crimes in Japan, sparking intense public debate and discussion. Now, more than 20 years have passed since the Miyazawa family was murdered, yet the killer remains at large, still evading justice. However, the Japanese police have not given up. They have appealed to the public for clues through television, newspapers, and other media outlets. The initial reward was set at 3 million yen, which was later increased to 10 million yen in 2010. By 2014, the reward had risen to 20 million yen. This is the highest reward ever offered by the Japanese police in the country's history, and it is completely separate from any rewards offered privately by the victims' families. The characteristics of the killer and key pieces of evidence have been translated into many languages. I hope that someone, somewhere, might come forward with a clue for the police. Every year, on December 30th, the Japanese police visit Mikio's house to lay flowers and offer their apologies. They vow to bring the killer to justice and restore justice for the victim's family. This is an unsolved case. If you have any thoughts or theories about the crime, please feel free to share your insights and opinions below. Today's video ends here. Thank you all for watching until the very end. See you in the next videos. Goodbye.